We are a partnership between Notre Dame, Purdue, and IU. So what exactly is a Clinical and Translational Sciences Institute versus an award? So there's over 60 funded awards, which are NIH grants. The Indiana CTSI is the only CTSA in Indiana and the only really true statewide CTSA. Many claim that, but I would say we're the only one that really does it. We have over 20 programs, 80 service corps. Our budget is roughly $24 million a year. About 150 people work under the CTSI, and only a quarter of that is really derived from the grant. That's why we are an institute and not just the award. So really, we are an infrastructure grant. So our main goal is to help you. And this is actually a graph. On the x-axis is years up to 2021, looking at the number of investigators who use CTSI resources and the number of service counts. Over 3,000 times people access one of our services, and about 2,000 investigators are engaged. We'd love to see that continually going up over time. So the CTSI is truly a statewide ecosystem. So on the left, you see patients and general public. We have an all-in for health registry that Sarah will talk about. Number 2 is the academic institutions. So obviously we have our key 4 locations, the 2 IU campuses, Regenstrief as a partner. And then going forward, we are planning to have more interaction with Ivy Tech to try to help educate the undergrad students that there is more to research and health than being a nurse, doctor, and pharmacist. The fourth over is actually the Indiana corporations and industry, which are conveniently located near all of our main campuses. And then importantly, the slide number 5 is the community organizations, and Sarah will go into that. But we have someone related to the CTSI in every county in the state. So your success is really our success. So first of all is our expert consultation and funding. So this includes the project development teams, the think tanks, we have bioethics, regulatory knowledge and support, biostatistics, and more. So one of our claims to fame is really our project development teams, which was started by Scott Denny in 2008, and we often use the word one-stop shop. So anyone who's a junior investigator knows what it's like to have to go visit 9 people about your study, make the appointments, and then have them all give you conflicting opinions and you don't know what to do. So we reversed this by bringing the 9 people to one room and allowing anyone to come in and talk to all 9 people at once. So there you get to see an interaction among those senior investigators, some thought going back and forth, and really come out with an input to your project that is synthesized from all of these different views. And we are very broad in what we take on these project development teams. So you can come in with an idea you have and you don't know where to go from there. You can come in with your first grant and you're trying to figure out how to find the money or pilot to do that one little small study that you need. You need to figure out how to do statistics. How do I get in? You need to figure out who is the collaborator on campus that I don't know about. Or you could actually come back with your summary statement from your NIH grant. As you know, they're kind of written very cryptically, and so sometimes you have to have experience in reading between the lines to really understand what they're trying to ask of you. So everyone on these committees pretty much sits on study sections, so we're used to how those things are written, and it's really a lot of help for you to get that. So everyone on these PDTs are actually served on study sections and are major PIs on extramural grants. And really the goal of the PDTs is actually to get extramural funding. So we have several different PDTs. That's in the second column. Concepts to Clinic is one that I chair, and I call it often the garbage can one, because if it doesn't fit into any of these other categories, it comes to us. But there are many, many pediatrics, human health, technology. We have a new one, structural and social determinants of health, community healthcare, health challenges in rural community. And these are actually spread across all of the state in terms of membership. And so many people from Regenstrief serve on these, and we're thankful for their time. So the PDT really offers advice, identify collaborators, support shared resources, and provide pilot funding. And if you put together the amount of money in awards from the CTSI. This includes both the core pilot grants and the PDTs. It's over $422 billion. And the return on investment is $24 for in extramural grants for every dollar we invest. So the bottom line is that in reality, we give pilot grants, but what's most valuable is the advice you get from a lot of senior investigators. So one of the deficits of the PDTs that we noticed was actually the inability of the people that we convene on them to really think about entrepreneurship. So sometimes you have an idea in your lab or a software and you think maybe this is a viable solution to something and I should think about commercialization. So traditionally, same kind of process. You go around to the commercialization office, you go talk to different people, the gray kind of curvy approach to figure out what you need to do. So about a year and a half ago, we started something called the think tank teams. So this is the idea, is to basically help you get a straight path to success. So these teams, as opposed to the PDTs, are made up of people who have actually patented something, who have commercialized, they've sold off something to a company, any of these kind of options. And we have two of them. One is really to do drug discovery, and the other is for device. So the drug discovery, we've taken advantage of the early retirement offered by Lilly, and half the people on that committee were former Lilly executives, so they really understand the drug development process. On the device think tank, everybody on there is a biomedical engineer with very different expertise. And so putting that together, having that group of people similar to the PDTs is a one-stop shop to get all the advice you need. We also have commercialization office from, for example, from IU would be sitting there, so they would actually get help from hearing all of the input from everyone in the group. So these are the different members of the think tank, and again, we spread our leadership throughout the state. So what about clinical research infrastructure? So I think everyone knows we have a clinical research center, but did you know we actually have 4 clinical research centers? So we have the adult one at University Hospital, we have a pediatric one at Riley, we have a neuroscience one in the neuroscience building, and we have another one up at Purdue that specializes in particular with food and nutrition. We also have an Office of Clinical Research, and over the last 2 years, we have been working on recruitment optimization concierge service. So while this particular org chart is not perfect yet, we have an ongoing process where we are looking at figuring out how to consolidate services under the Office for Clinical Research. So right now, if you survey most investigators, they have a clinical research study, whether it's pharma, trial, or NIH. They know they have to go to this office, and then they hope it comes out at the other end. So what we're trying to do is make it a little bit more user-friendly and that you actually understand why we have all of these pieces. So on the left, again, are the 4 clinical research centers. We also work closely with the Indiana Biobank, who can recruit specimens and biospecimens for you. And we have business services such as contracts, Medicare coverage analysis, which makes sure that your billing is in compliance with Medicare and now Medicaid. And then informatics and analyses, where the Regenstrief Institute fits in a lot in terms of feasibility analyses. So we work in terms of our statewide approach. This is where we're going with the new CTSI renewal. Currently, there is an opportunity to do studies at multiple IU health sites, in particular at Bloomington and Arnett and Ball, but they're limited in numbers at the present time. But our goal over the next 7-year grant is actually to expand our capabilities, not only in IU Health, but in some of the other health systems across the state. So this is a work in progress, kind of outlining how we are working to improve the clinical research services by consolidating the investigator access. So I wish this was working. You can't see that, right? Okay. So on the left-hand side are the websites and handouts. And be doing some communication plans, and then we would have basically 2 tiers. So required services, which you just can't get out of because they're all related to compliance, and as you know, those laws change regularly. And then we have ancillary services that can help you depending upon what your study's needs are. So this includes recruitment, coordinator services, the statewide, and help with the CRCs, and then also help with community engagement. So we're trying to get everyone to think about all of these resources when they first route their IRB-approved clinical study for work. And of course, this is a return to sender every time that you have another question. There's going to be folks there. So the recruitment concierge service, again, we've been working on this for about a couple of years, and the idea behind this is that we all underestimate how hard it is to recruit participants into clinical research. We like to think it's easy, but it's just never easy. So what we have is a lot of resources on campus to help with that, but you don't know about them till you need them and it's too late. So when you're planning a protocol or when you've received a grant for protocol, you can visit our recruitment concierge. Right now, that's Brenda Hudson. She will bring in whatever she thinks is needed to help you assess your recruitment goals, and you'll have a one-on-one meeting that's free of charge. And then they will develop a recruitment plan for you. So they'll say, this would be a good resource for you to use. You may need social media, but maybe you don't need social media. Maybe you need this, that. And so they'll give you some ideas and suggestions of how to improve your recruitment. So you'll have a plan, we'll give you an evaluation of that. And then if you want them to do a little more in-depth services, then those are fee-for-service opportunities. So we have people on campus that can do all of these pieces for you, but again, as an investigator, it's hard to know where to find people. And this is the idea, again, for having a one-stop shop to go and learn about all these resources. All right, coming soon is something we call Primed for Success. So what we also know, we've sped up the IRB process. We have a statewide agreement with almost every healthcare system to use the IU IRB through a reliance agreement. And once you get all of that approved, then you have to implement your study. So if it is an interventional study, for example, you need to actually do things like set up your database, make sure that you have a statistical plan that's solid. You need to order blood tubes. How do you do that? You need to figure out how to bill for a CBC that's run over at IU Health. How do you set up an invoice for that? And this is particularly important for people who are new to an interventional study and or are new to the institution to learn how to do this. So the idea is, again, we would have a place where you could go and discuss your protocol with seasoned study coordinators who know all these ins and outs, and they will help you figure out how to navigate all of these various complexities and hopefully speed up the time between when you have that approval to your first enrollment. So recruitment is on here, data, helping you set up a REDCap base, implementation, again, how you get the invoicing, and then the recruitment concierge, again, in one sitting to be able to go through your protocol with you and optimize it. All right, obviously this is a big data group here, so we know that we have data and analytics support, including feasibility data through Regenstrief Data Services. We also have what we call BIRD, which is Biostats, Epidemiology, and Research Design. So if you are writing a grant, you can get free support prior to the submission to help write that. They're not going to do it for you the day before, just fair warning. You have to actually give them some warning. But there are individuals at every single campus within the CTSI. And importantly, if someone, let's say on the IUPUI campus or the IU campus, School of Medicine campus, doesn't know how to do a particular analysis, they have a network across the entire state to identify people that can figure out how to do your specific needs for analysis. This is a really well worked out system. They also have open office hours to try to help you do this, learn about the statistical support. And what I always tell my junior investigators in nephrology is, okay, don't collect data until you've met with the statistician and get the data form set up correctly. How many people have been there, done that, where they put the data in and then they visit with stats and they go, oops, you put it in the wrong format. You need to do X, Y, Z. Well, if you knew that in the beginning, wouldn't that be good? And that's what we're trying to prove with that. Obviously, Regenstrief is absolutely essential for our feasibility data requests supported by the CTSI. So the value is just unmeasurable here, and as the honest data broker for research with the INPC, that's absolutely critical to people who plan their research study. So the CTSI actually pays for and supports the requests for the use of INPC data for research purposes. So those initial feasibility requests, the funding comes through the CTSI to Regenstrief. But in close, so we obviously work very close with the Regenstrief Data Services and many of you in this room. And we have been instituting programs to monitor and improve customer service, monitor and address identified issues in data quality, and structural interventions to improve the efficiencies and the sustainability. One of examples of this is a program called Right the First Time, is a quality metric where looking at the data the first time and then having it checked by another RDS person to see how well the data was extracted. And you can see that the basically the quality implementation work that has been done has actually markedly improved this data. So it's exciting to see these improvements, and we look forward to continuing down this road to enhancing the quality of the feasibility data requests, and we really are thankful that all of you are excited about this. All right, well, anyone who's trying to hire someone knows the workforce is an issue right now. We just don't have enough people that are trained in these various roles. And so the CTSI has traditionally been very strong in many programs to enhance our workforce. So, for example, in high school, we have SEED STEM programs, which have been up to 200 to 300 students. They actually have to interview and apply. They actually have a coat and tie kind of interview for high school kids. I know we're all going, really? But they come for the summer. They get a series of mentoring and lessons about science careers. Then during college, we are working with the IUPUI campus, and we have summer internships, for example, as med students, Impress, and even undergraduate summer internships. And then on that program, we are expanding, as I mentioned, to Ivy Tech in the next UM1. For the graduate students and the postdocs, we currently have a TL1. Those will be transitioned into T32s with the new grant. And we have a KL2 for the early career faculty. And then for new faculty, if you're not sure about that, we have a program called iCubed, which is independent investigator incubators, really intense grant writing and mentoring. We have a SITE program, which is a clinical investigator training program for research coordinators. So if you're hiring a new research coordinator, you can actually get help in training the individual. So throughout all of this, we have kind of fundamentals of our educational themes, and this includes both horizontal and vertical mentoring, and also mentor training. We believe strongly in individualized development plan or individual development plans, IDPs. We work hard and we work with HR about career transitions and communication training, and then obviously we're very in tune and we want to increase our diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm going to hand that off now to Sarah, who's going to continue on what we have and get into where we want to go.
Thanks, Sharon. And I'll try and make this quick because I do want to make sure we leave at least 15 minutes for questions and answers. So be thinking about what things you'd like to discuss more, because this is sort of the quick overview and many things that we're not going into a lot of depth on. And as many of you know, I can talk probably ad nauseum about community engagement programs, which I'm passionate about. And we have a lot of services to offer. I sort of organize this in terms of direct services, funding opportunities, free consultations on community engaged research and identifying partners, as well as our All-In for Health. And I'll talk about several of these, not all. This is sort of the disaggregated picture of our map that was shown earlier by each of these programs. We do have engagement in all 92 counties, which we're very proud of, although also always looking to expand our network with your help. The Trailblazer Award is our community university funding award program. Many of you have successfully applied and been awarded within this, so please keep it in mind as a support mechanism to support these types of partnerships. A few years ago, we added in a planning grant opportunity for that's really pretty low-hanging fruit to support more of the community partner engagement time it needs to even identify a research project and a collaborative opportunity with you. And we have a call for applications open now, so it's just a plug to spread the word on this particular mechanism across the Institute. We would be thrilled to hear from you all, and please reach out to us early if you'd even like to discuss an idea. The Trailblazer Award deadline is on June 1st, and the planning grant, which I think is just a one-page application, it's super easy, is on August 1st. Connections in Health is our statewide health coalition program and is a collaboration with the Indiana Department of Health and the IU Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center. This is really managing 4 statewide chronic disease coalitions, as shown on the right. And in order to really engage deeply across these chronic disease conditions, which oftentimes have the same upstream determinants, we had opted to identify 10 counties with sort of the highest burden of these chronic conditions, and those are highlighted in the map. We started engaging one by one in these counties throughout the state, and as you can see, we have the final few identified in the current year and next year, and we will continue to expand, as I will show in our 4.0 application. So this is an example of sort of one of the early stages of this engagement process as part of Connections in Health in Washington County. There are a lot of listening sessions and town halls and identification of ambassadors, community ambassadors who would be interested in collaborating and sort of championing the health research and health-related work in that county. And this highlights some of the priorities identified in this county from a health perspective. And I think you'll notice these are probably no surprise to you all, but some of the more detailed comments I think are really interesting and can help to guide both partnership identification for research purposes, as well as where to start with evidence-based interventions. Many of you are already involved with WISE Indiana, but for those of you who are not aware of this, this is a partnership that I'm very proud of between the Indiana CTSI and Indiana Family and Social Services Administration that offers academic expertise as a service. This is so important, in my opinion, from a translational research standpoint, because the last mile, so to speak, in translating research into practice is often the hardest. So through this partnership with FSSA that started in 2020, WISE stands for, I should say, Wellbeing Informed by Science and Evidence in Indiana. We identified that we have a shared vision around identifying evidence-based solutions and engaging with nationally recognized thought leaders, that's all of you, to address some of the state's most pressing health problems. It sounds a lot like our mission statement, right? And it's also there. So there have been 34 task orders to date. I've highlighted a few of them here. Some folks in the audience have led some of these, and we're very proud of the fact that we can be front door, if you will, to access to this expertise across the state. If you are not already on our expert directory or would like to join our community health partnerships network and receive tailored communications based on your interests, here's the QR code. We can make these slides available, just trying to be a little provocative and getting you all engaged here. So anyway, if you go to this site, it'll ask you about your interests around being more involved in WISE Indiana as an expert and what your expertise is in, or if you'd like to be more participate as part of one of our statewide health coalitions, or be a Trailblazer Award reviewer, all of these things, and you won't get blasted for everything that we send out in terms of funding announcements and activities, but just those things that you're most interested in. So we're excited about this actually pretty new development with our network. All In for Health is our online engagement platform for Hoosiers to promote health and research literacy. And it's really intended to be a bi-directional opportunity to engage with the general public, as opposed to community health partnerships, which is more with community organizations and coalitions and so on. All In for Health is for any Hoosier across the state to be involved. It includes a volunteer registry of over 15,000 people who have signed up, given us their contact information, and even identified certain disease characteristics that could be leveraged and tapped to basically reach out to for research opportunities. And we have a larger group of over 50,000 who are sort of a part of our online community. We utilize website, blog, newsletters, and multiple social media channels. There is a public-facing study page where you can sort of create your own study-specific site. And we're working to, as Sharon mentioned, sort of plug the resources from All In for Health into all of the one-stop shops that we have, depending on if you're looking for a clinical trial launch or a project development team, or even with the think tanks. So are you all in for health? Please sign up. Okay, so what's new? As Sharon mentioned, we are very excited to be going into what we affectionately refer to as our Indiana CTSI 4.0, which means it's the fourth cycle of NIH funding. Just got our notice of award, so we can now talk about it like it's actually happening, which is exciting. The new period is actually being extended from 5 years to 7 years. So in this particular case, it goes through 2030, and the NIH, with everything that's had been happening with the pandemic, and so on, really took a very hard look at their priority areas, and sort of as guidance for us in the FOA gave us these 6 key areas of emphasis. And it's within these key areas of emphasis that we responded in our application. So it's to develop, demonstrate, and disseminate innovations that turn science into medicine faster. They really want to speed up that translational process. There's a big focus on addressing, not just monitoring or identifying, addressing health disparities and improving health equity, to promote training and career support, to promote impactful partnerships and collaborations. This was something that was especially appreciated in the pandemic, of course, because of the concerns around trust in science and trust in research that came up. Provide a national resource for the rapid response to urgent public health needs, and to nurture the field of translational science, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So, and the next slide. So we are all, I think, familiar, Sharon and I at least were, with the clinical and translational research, the endeavor to traverse a particular step of the translational process. Some people call it T1 to T2, T2 to T3. So going from the bench to bedside to the community, if you will, sort of making that translation. But this new construct that was introduced in this most recent cycle was in the area of clinical and translational science. And this is a field of investigation focused on understanding the scientific and operational principles underlying each step of the translational process. So for example, why does a particular service work or not work? What could we do to be more efficient and effective? So they want to go beyond just offering resources and infrastructure to really refining and maximizing the impact of those resources by taking a very careful look at how well we're doing. And so there is a big emphasis on that science component that we will be talking to you more about in the coming 7 years. So these are our specific aims. We did have as a theme, I would say, throughout the application, this focus on trust and trustworthiness that ties together sort of a focus on workforce development, partnerships, services, translational science, and data harmonization. And I'm going to go through some of those one by one. This is our vision statement. In 2030, at the end of the 7-year renewal funding period, we envision the Indiana CTSI will transform our statewide research ecosystem with deliberate attention to diversity and inclusion in our partnerships, workforce development, and research engagement. We will accelerate innovation and rapidly implement evidence into practice in order to advance health equity. Very aspirational, but I think very much in line with the guidance we received from NIH and in line with where we were already heading, frankly, as an institution and a state. So this figure sort of helps to, I think, capture a lot of where we're headed. So the Monon Collaborative, as some of you know, was started in our last grant cycle and focused primarily in the community engagement realm. The Monon railway, I should say, historically went from Chicago to Louisville, so it's an Indiana railway. It's no longer in place, but we liked that it was sort of Indiana specific. In addition, as maybe some of you were involved, there was a recent study that showed a 15-year life expectancy gap along a 15-mile stretch of the Monon Trail. And so we thought the word Monon also evoked a focus on health equity. And then collaborative was sort of indicating that the CTSI is not intending to necessarily lead, but walk alongside our many partners in this effort, we hope. So the focus in the 4.0 is really to expand the Monon Collaborative, which in the last cycle had focused mostly in Marion County and on issues relating to engagement, to also include health informatics, clinical research, and workforce development, and really be based in sort of the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion, trustworthiness, and community engagement. And I'll touch on some of these as I go through, but with the intent of clearing the barriers to translational science in order to advance health equity. So it's just a visual way of sort of reflecting our vision statement. So how are we going to do this? The expansion, so we're going to stop, look, and listen. We're trying to go along with this like railway theme here. I don't know how well it's working. But similar to like how we approached some of connections in health, I think similarly we would like to sort of go region by region rather than county by county, going a little bit broader to engage, to really stop and listen to the community and understand how we can best partner and move forward across all of these domains. We made the argument that Indiana is actually pretty similar to the United States in terms of demographics. Socioeconomically, we're urban and mostly on a racial and ethnic standpoint as well. But when you look at us region by region, we're actually quite diverse. And so by starting in regions 1 and 7, which is sort of the Gary area and Terre Haute area, these are quite different communities, but if we can understand what works in terms of our regionalized approach in those 2 areas, we would have learned a tremendous amount. So switching more metaphors, we're still working on this here, but to a cooking one. This is sort of the process that we're proposing, and it sort of goes along with that stop, look, and listen, but in a different way. So we're going to start with a needs and readiness assessment. That's our preheat phase for those chefs out there. We're going to have this regional engagement preparation where we're going to be specifically thinking about who are those community organizational partners, those healthcare partners, those academic partners, the workforce partners within that region to understand where are the assets, where are their priorities, where would they see opportunities to partner with us as part of the CTSI. And then we're going to facilitate connections, try and increase capacity, offer resources, perhaps collaborate on grant applications, et cetera. And then scale and transfer support sort of within those regions to ideally be sustainable. We hope that our approach, which is highly engaged and focused on the community's needs, will sort of start with engagement with sustainability in mind. Okay. I'm going to, so from a workforce development, as I mentioned, there was sort of a focus in these 3 different areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, trustworthiness, and community engagement. We just highlighted, and there's a lot of literature behind this, which I'm sure many of you are aware, the core principles in these areas and the overlaps between them. But the hope is that we're really going to dig into these constructs in sort of that entire workforce pipeline and try and offer resources for those trainees as well as for the institutions as a whole. And we would welcome ideas from all of you if there are things existing that you use or perhaps lead as part of the many training things that I know Regenstrief is engaged in. All right. From the statewide informatics strengths, this is really Titus's baby. We are so thankful for his leadership in this arena and co-led by Kosali Simon. And I wanted to highlight in more detail this particular section, given the fact that I thought there may be more interest in this arena. So these are the key objectives from this section of the grant. And as you can see, it focuses on data infrastructure, the cloud in the diagram, the curated data registries, tools, and experts, sort of the CHI-pod, which I'll touch on in a little bit more depth in the next slide. The Indiana Learning Health System Initiative, which is a key priority of the CTSIs, and that we're hoping to grow to be a truly statewide learning health system in partnership with other health systems, perhaps. And then to connect existing health informatics training programs throughout the state. We're very fortunate to have many of these, and sort of the idea is how can we better sort of connect and synergize those efforts. So a little bit more on the CTSI health informatics pods, the CHI pods. These have a couple of different components, but one piece that I'm very excited about, but I feel like is also has some opportunity for refinement and with perhaps your input, is this expert bench. I suspect you will recognize most, if not all, of the names on that list of folks that have a tremendous amount of expertise brought to the table. So the idea is like how to leverage this incredible expertise for the value of investigators across the state. Would this look like a PDT of sorts? Could this be engaged in specific focus areas? It's already being tapped, I know, by some grants in progress, and I think will continue to evolve as we discuss it more and turn this into more of a reality. On the right-hand side is actually just an example of this, curated data mart. It's for Sharon's P30 grant. That is an actual real-life example and place where we can start, but sort of highlights the integration of multiple different data types, something that Regenstrief does, all of the time. As many of you know and are probably firsthand involved in, IMPC data are being currently mapped to OMOP, which I think will tremendously improve the data quality and accessibility of those data for research purposes. In any case, by focusing on certain disease states of, for this initiative, the thought is that the investment can happen once and ideally benefit many, many investigators sort of with an interest in that area. All right, so from just returning to the clinical research and clinical and translational science, there was an additional component of the grant that focused on clinical and translational science that Peter Schwartz is leading, focused on public deliberation. And in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. There will be pilot grants as well available for translational science projects, so be thinking about your ideas. More information on that soon. Okay, so I think we're just going to wrap up by going through each of the areas of emphasis and sort of highlighting the things that we are proposing to do that align with each of these objectives. So in the area to promote training and career support, we plan to partner with our statewide community college system, Ivy Tech, to diversify our workforce and increase training across the state in data analytics, health equity research, and effective communication to prepare our future workforce. We plan to develop, disseminate, or demonstrate innovation that turns science into medicine faster through our milestone-driven focus on drug and device development and our Primed for Success program to ensure rapid study startup, successful recruitment, and implementation in the Indiana Learning Health System. We will promote impactful partnerships and collaboration with attention to the principles of trustworthiness, community engagement, and diversity, equity, and inclusion through the Monon Collaborative Regional Expansion, where we will authentically engage with community, focus on their research priorities, offer opportunities for research participation, enhance workforce diversity, and expand clinical collaborations. And we'll provide national resource for a rapid response to urgent public health needs through our increased and deepened partnerships through the state, our enhanced statewide clinical research network, and our collaborations with state and governmental partners to rapidly implement evidence into policy and practice. We will address health disparities through our expanded partnerships and Monon Collaborative Engagement Strategy, more comprehensive data and health system collaborations serving the underserved, and training and mentorship by health equity researchers across the translational spectrum. And final, oh, I think that's a duplicate, excuse me. And just a recap of our vision statement, which you've already heard. And just a quick advertisement to mark your calendars for September 22nd. That is when we'll have our annual CTSI meeting, and where our 2023 Watanabe Prize winner will give the keynote speech. For those of you who don't know, the Watanabe Prize is the largest cash award in translational research in the world of $100,000. And if you have ideas for a Watanabe Award winner for the 2024 cycle, please submit your nominations now. We are accepting them until May 1st. Great. So please remember, your success is our success. Regenstrief is one of our 4 named partners as part of the Indiana CTSI, so you are already a part. Please reach out to us and get more engaged if you're not already, and we very much welcome your questions, insights, and way to make this better. Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question from online. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
This is Malaz. First of all, outstanding. Like, it's just simply amazing story, amazing leadership. I'm so proud of being part of this group. So that's really, really awesome. And the second, not a question, more comments under the entrepreneurship. I know currently you're focusing on device and drugs. I've been, ironically, just today, I sold my equity for a software piece. So if you want to expand, this was the second company, if you want to expand to more what I call it, software or services-based entrepreneurship, let me know. it's not an easy track like device and drug, but if you want, I'm more than happy to help out in that piece. But thank you so much for everything.
Great, great. Thanks, Maz. Yeah, the device, in theory, we're supposed to be taking software into the device, but they have not had anybody go there. But there were a couple of people engaged in software development on there, although with turnover, I don't think that's true anymore. I need to follow up. So thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, all of our companies are software, so just FYI.
Okay,
But
great.
Nicole?
Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna make sure to take notes.
Yeah, so I was trying to do it on my phone, and I'm not very fast.
How about now? Yep,
Yeah.
good. So first I need to tell Malaz that was the first time he actually sounded like the voice of God. I know he tried sometimes, but we were like, where is that voice coming from? It was kind of funny. So I really wanted to specifically focus on workforce development. Thank you for this presentation. It was really wonderful and informative, and I feel like you could give it 4 times in 4 different ways. And so, you know, if you're taking the show on the road, let me know. I'm going to come
We finished
in.
the slides 2 hours ago. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, they were great. Congratulations. And true to form, Sharon Moe, the first time I met you, you're like, yeah, we're going to do this P30 in a month. And I was like, you're nuts. But she did it. So I'm not surprised about the slides, but really about workforce development and how important it is, especially in our current climate. And I really heard this presentation from the context of an investigator. I know a lot of people listening today are staff. And I wonder if you could just spend a little bit of time, and I know we're limited, but just a little bit of time telling staff, what can you do for your own professional development and how these services can speak to your own professional development while still meeting the goals of the CTSI?
It's a great question. Yeah, no, really great question. So the plan for the Ivy Tech is to actually develop a series of, I don't know, I want to say videos, a little more sophisticated than that, but talks from people that do different things within healthcare, health systems, and research. So those will be available, and so anyone that wants to know what other career opportunities. So for example, if you go on the IUHR website, which I just went on today because somebody out of the blue emailed me and said, I saw this job in the CTSI, and I went, what job? And so I looked at it. I don't even know what it is because they're so broad and vague. They're not helpful in terms of what you really do. So I think that's going to be something that we'll take forward to Matt to try to actually make sure that we advertise that to actually the trainees, and maybe even consider, I hadn't thought of that till this morning, but maybe even consider putting that on the IU website for the various job classifications. Because if you read the website, I mean, you don't know what the heck they're talking about that you're going to be doing until you walk in.
I also like that comment, Nicole, and I think it, I would encourage staff, if you're interested in being more involved in the CTSI, this is where you can help to implement change for your colleagues. First of all, we would love to hear what you think is needed to improve your workforce, because it's not just about workforce development, it's retention of our workforce, right? And so, and that's it's a crisis, frankly. And so I do think that we need more insight into what's going to make that better and what the needs are. And if you have ideas on how to improve things, we would welcome your collaboration. So in addition to like sort of what you formally heard here, please don't feel constrained by that. Reach out to one of us if you have ideas or you want to get more involved. We would love to talk more.
Hi, this is Sonia. Hi, Bill Tierney. First of all, congratulations on getting funded. And this is 7 years this time, right? So you don't have to start writing next one until next year. No, but certainly I heard you had a terrific score, and for the first time putting one in together, and you know, and it wasn't this same old. And you really we're really very proud of what you've been able to do. But now you know the best news you can get is your grant was funded. The worst news you can get was your grant was funded. And you have to do everything you said. You know, as you know, I took a 5-year sabbatical and went to the University of Texas. campus. And there, the medical school is actually very closely tied to the main campus. It's on the main campus. And what turned out to be a tremendous resource for us were GRAs involved with the undergrads, grad students, PhD students. Every one of our clinical investigators had a lab. The lab had students at various levels in there. And not only are they and to be honest, it never happened here in the 35 years here. I never had a GRA. I didn't even know what they were. And we ended up having, a dozen of them in my department, and they were tremendous, fun to work with, but also they became people who then a couple of them actually end up on the faculty, because it was a pathway to developing people who got really tied into a very specific interest. We're not well tied into the IUPUI campus here, and technically I'm on the campus. I'm now in the School of Public Health, and we're not as well tied into the Bloomington campus as we could be. So I think that's. But if it was going to happen spontaneously, it would have happened, right? So I think it's going to take some facilitating, a catalyst of some kind. But I think the return on investment could be terrific, both for a workforce of energetic people who benefit from doing it, but also for the pathway of people getting careers that some of which will stay here.
That's a great point. And it's kind of, there is a program with IUPUI, the LHSI, that has a lot of applicants and not enough money because they receive a small stipend. And they work like 10 hours throughout the year. And it's like, there's plenty of people that want to do that. And so we just have to spread that word. I don't think we've done that well enough. Yeah. So.
I would also say, Bill, given that you had this great experience elsewhere, I would welcome ideas on what to do to catalyze that activity. Like, what resources are we missing to sort of assist in that way? And so we can talk offline about that, but I'd be eager to hear more about, because I think there's other organizational things, like, there's just like a million different websites, for example, you can go as a student to sort of find an opportunity. And similarly, you know what I mean? Like, there is no one-stop shop for like student internships. And we've talked about that as one example of something that might be low-hanging fruit, but I'd be very curious on what worked where you were.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I just have a few comments and a couple recommendations too.
Yeah.
Well, first, to build on what Bill said too with Bloomington anyway, Rich Holden has made some great inroads into bringing some groups together. And so that's been fun to see, and it could be, a source of growth. Fantastic. This is so exciting. Like, congratulations again. I cannot imagine all the things you're doing. Two things. One is, it's really great to see the recruitment service that, and I'm recalling Bill's birth of ResNet, whenever that was some decades ago. And like, that's such a big need. If not already happening, maybe think about a discount for K awardees, because they don't have money.
Yep.
So that was point one. Point two is, I love how all these partners are on your train. There's a hidden one that's an enormous financial sponsor of CTSI beneficiaries, obviously, the VA, right? And, I think even though it is like the VA is not part of the CTSI directly, but I think it could be a more involved partner with the CTSI. We do a lot with, between the two. But when I think about faculty members who have dual appointments, like that, the VA is a source of enormous strength for those faculty. It's opportunity, it's data, big data, and it's salary support. And I think that helps not only the faculty members, but the institutions. So maybe they can be part of your train.
Yeah, no, actually, there is a hidden VA icon in the statewide health partners. I think we have to make it a little bit bigger, but yeah, I've been a lifer VA investigator. I retired from there to take on the CTSI role, but yeah, very much appreciated. And so, and we do have, our implementation, I don't know if you want to talk about, yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that we didn't talk about, but I know Matt Alsma's been in touch with some of the VA investigators in particular around sort of more of an implementation science core, and that's sort of something that's still in development, but I think a ripe area for collaboration given the tremendous expertise. But yeah, I'll testify to Sharon has been like, the VA since involved. And I just think we need to find the right opportunities to like dig in on specific projects. And I do think the implementation science is a great place to potentially start, although I'm sure there's many others. So again, reach out when you see opportunities too, and we could talk more.
And the MVP data set is huge. And so COSALI is actually trying to work with all of IU to kind of catalog some of these things. And so we brought that up there as well. So, yeah.
That's great. I would just add for new faculty recruits, for new for new faculty recruits, the VA could be a draw and a source of professional development that is really key. Thanks.
Hello. I will echo all the things that people said about how fantastic all of the work is, and it's really exciting to see the funding and the ideas for 4.0. I guess my question, I know there was a lot to cover, and so you couldn't cover everything, but it's kind of going back to some of the things that were sort of the bread and butter of the original CTSIs, which was sort of creating an infrastructure to kind of enhance recruitment. And a lot of us do human subjects recruitment, and we're expanding, and there's been a lot of changes that have happened in the health system since the first CTSI was funded. And I wanted to get a little bit of information about how the CTSI is trying to help kind of, I don't know, harness or umbrella or support that in these different entities that we work with, you know, because a lot of us are recruiting thousands of patients that are part of IU Health, for example. And, you know, we don't want that to just be a one-off. We want it to be part of a larger infrastructure, but it's not sure oftentimes how we do that with the CTSI. So.
Yeah, I mean, so we've started by first getting IU and IU Health together through the OCR, okay? But in parallel, we have been meeting with Chris Callahan as well monthly just to kind of figure out how we can also enhance Eskenazi recruitment as well. The ResNet model has been less effective with the dispersion of a lot of the primary care clinics, and that's made it very, very, very hard. The win, from my perspective, is we have those recruitment pods in the clinics now. Okay, that was a CTSI move. So at least there's a place to talk to a participant over there now. But yeah, we have a long way to go. And the idea behind the Office of Clinical Research is in that pipeline, we will be assessing where you're going to be recruiting from and then connecting people to people that will help. But yeah, it's tough. We have too many disparate systems to really approach with one plan. So appreciate that very much.
Quick question. And so, again, thanks for coming to present today. So you had some amazing graphics, like the tree and the train, I assume were in your grant proposal. Is that a service that you offer?
No, it is not a service. You cannot have, if Dustin Lynch is listening, no, it is actually a service. It's called the Design Core. Okay. So as part of Research Jam, there's like stakeholder engagement sessions, and then there's also like sort of a less expensive option, which is like learning from the stakeholder engagement, but really like working on communicating science visually. Mm-hmm. So people have hired for like a single figure on a grant, or, you know, something much bigger. And I mean, it is, I have drunk the Kool-Aid, so to speak, because I've been working with this team for so long now, but it is an investment, particularly to have one of these design folks join a team sort of in preparation for a grant, but I can't emphasize enough how they can be true collaborators in sort of helping to even synthesize some of the ideas as you're sort of pulling these figures together. So if you do engage with them, think about if you have the resources to do so early on in the process, because they can really help to actually make the process more efficient too, in terms of communicating your ideas. But yeah, let me know. It's on our website, but you can also just email me and I can put you in touch.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Nice work.
Thank you, Brian.
This needs to be our last question because it's 1:01.
Oh, okay.
If you can, is it okay, can you wait a second?
Yeah, hey, I have time afterwards too to talk to folks off. Yep.
So I was listening to what you were talking about with the workforce development piece, and I was curious if you had done any work to reach out to thinking like in the field of mental health. There's a really big push right now, particularly through HRSA funding for peer education and training in substance use as well as mental health conditions. And what I'm really curious about is, since the lived experience piece of existing with these conditions can be a really important part to treatment adherence, I was just curious if you had any ideas in mind for adding the state agencies, particularly like Mental Health America of Indiana and Mental Health America of Northwest or Northeast Indiana. They head up those training programs, and not only working with them for the training process, but also incorporating the lived experience lens into the translation process of not just drug production, but also forms of care and things like that.
I love that. So the first part, no. The lived experience, yes. So a lot of what Research Jam, our human-centered design group, does is really engage with stakeholders generally, not specific to mental health, but have done work in that area to sort of offer insights and co-design and, you know, it really inform our work. I think that could, and we've talked about like how to leverage that resource for the training and workforce development pieces. And some of that actually has already happened around a few of the community engagement and trustworthiness principles. We've gotten through like 2 or 3, many more to go. But yeah, and I'd welcome like the specific ideas that you have on those agencies in particular. That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, please join me in thanking Sharon and Sarah one more time. It was wonderful that you all came so in such great numbers, as well as online. I was not surprised that this was the highest engagement REILS so far, having the engagement queen of IU and CTSI here. So thank you very much.